Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With FishingBooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. FishingBooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to FishingBooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.
We gather here tonight to bring women back to their rightful place.
The Testaments, a new Hulu original series from the executive producers of The Handmaid's Tale.
It's easier to accept a story than believe that the people around you are monsters.
The battle isn't over.
There comes a time when you have to take action, when you have to choose your own destiny.
Never quite as it seems.
Watch the new Hulu original series, The Testaments, streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
Join Justin Townsend and the Harvesting Nature crew as they explore the world of cooking wild fish and game while sharing recipes, tips, tricks, and lessons learned from their pursuit of wild food. We sure hope you ate before the show, 'cause you're gonna leave hungry. This is the Wild Fish and Game Podcast.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Wild Harvest Report. I'm Adam Berkelmans, and this is your monthly Food First Field Bulletin covering what's broadly in season across the United States and Canada, hunting, fishing, and foraging, along with the seasonal shifts that actually matter this time of year. This report covers April 2026. As always, this is not a substitute for regulations. Seasons, methods, quotas, conservation orders, and access rules vary by state, province, unit, and sometimes by day. Always confirm details directly with state wildlife agencies, provincial and territorial ministries, federal migratory bird and fisheries authorities. April is a momentum month. Spring is no longer tentative anymore, it's really underway in most places. Migration accelerates, spawning behavior becomes more consistent, and plant growth moves from scattered to widespread. Let's start where spring is already well established. Starting out with the southeast. Across the southeast, April is fully spring. Water temperatures continue rising and patterns stabilize. Inshore, redfish remain active along marsh edges and oyster structure, while speckled trout push more aggressively into feeding windows, especially during low light periods. Sheep's head began tapering off slightly after peak spawning activity, but remain available around structures. Inland, largemouth bass are in peak spawn or moving into post-spawn depending on location, and crappie are firmly shallow and accessible. In the woods, turkey season is in full swing. Gobbling activity can be strong early in the month and then becomes more variable as breeding progresses. Birds began shifting patterns, requiring more adaptive setups. Wild hogs remain consistent and predator movement continues, particularly during early morning and evening transitions. Foragers now see a real shift. Early greens give way to more established growth. We're talking nettles, wild onions, garlic mustard, and other spring plants that are filling in. In some areas, the first mushrooms begin appearing late in the month. April in the southeast is active, green, and increasingly food-rich. Moving on to the deep south. Across the deep south, April builds on everything that started in March. River systems remain high in many areas, and warming water keeps crappie shallow and concentrated. Catfish remain steady, especially in current breaks and deeper channels. In Louisiana marsh systems, redfish and black drum continue to hold in productive zones with stable conditions improving consistency. Turkey season continues across the region, though hunting becomes more nuanced. Early season responsiveness gives way to more pressured and henned-up birds, requiring patience and movement. Snow goose migration is largely tapering off as flocks move north, but some late movement can still be seen early in the month. Predator hunting remains viable and hog activity stays consistent. Foraging is expanding quickly. Greens are becoming more abundant and diverse, and mushrooms, including early morels in some areas, begin appearing depending on rainfall and soil temperatures. The deep south in April is less about transition and more about refinement, dialing in patterns that are already established. Moving to the south, Texas and Oklahoma continue to shift, but variability remains a defining factor. Warm conditions dominate, though late cold fronts can still disrupt patterns. On the coast, redfish and speckled trout settle into more predictable feeding patterns, with bait movement becoming more consistent. Inland, bass are spawning or moving into post-spawn phases, and catfish remain a reliable option. Turkey season is active across much of the region, and Rio Grande birds in particular create a distinct hunting dynamic compared to eastern populations. Snow goose migration largely clears out by mid-month, though early April can still hold opportunities. Predator hunting continues, and hogs remain active year-round. Wind continues to shape both fishing and hunting conditions, often more than the temperature itself. Foragers begin seeing stronger plant growth and, in some areas, early mushroom emergence tied to rainfall patterns. In the southwest, April is defined by contrast. Low desert areas are fully into spring conditions, while higher elevations are still transitioning out of winter. Tailwater trout fisheries remain productive, and in Southern California, surf species and rockfish continue with open seasons and regulations. Spring bear season begins opening in some western units, particularly at lower elevations, and predator hunting remains consistent across the region. Desert rainfall can trigger brief but significant foraging opportunities. Edible greens and short-lived plant growth appear quickly and disappear just as fast, rewarding those who are paying very close attention. Elevation continues to dictate access and opportunity across the entire Southwest. Moving into the Rockies, April begins to break winter's hold across the interior west, but unevenly. Lower elevations open up, while higher country remains snow-covered and largely inaccessible. Ice fishing transitions to open water in southern areas, and tailwater fisheries continue to provide stable trout opportunities. Spring bear seasons expand across portions of this region, with access improving as snow recedes. Predator hunting remains active, and migratory birds, particularly snow geese, move through lower elevations as they continue north. Movement here is still tied heavily to elevation, but access is improving week by week. April in the Pacific Northwest remains wet, but increasingly productive. Steelhead runs continue in many river systems, and shellfish harvesting remains strong where conditions allow. Razor clam openings continue as announced, and oysters and mussels remain viable in cold waters. Spring bear seasons open in select units, and predator hunting remains available. Foragers begin to see more consistent plant growth. Nettles become more widespread, and other early greens begin filling in. Coastal foraging opportunities continue to follow tidal patterns. Rain still defines this region, but productivity increases with each passing week. Across the prairies in the Midwest, April is a major transition point. Snow goose migration continues early in the month, but moves north pretty quickly. By mid to late April, most flocks have passed through, shifting the focus away from large-scale migration hunting. Ice out becomes a dominant story. Lakes open, and fish move into pre-spawn and spawning phases. Walleye stage and spawn in rivers and near current, crappie move to shallow water, and early season angling opportunities expand rapidly. Turkey seasons begin opening across the region, bringing renewed activity to the woods. Foragers begin to see real growth. Early greens become reliable, and morel season begins in southern portions of the region, moving north as temperatures rise. April here is about watching water, where it opens, where it warms, and where life follows. In the Northeast, April marks a clear shift into spring, though conditions can still vary widely. Ice fishing largely ends, and open water fishing begins to take over. Trout stocking programs expand, and early season trout fishing becomes widely available. Turkey season begins opening in parts of the region towards the end of the month, and predator hunting continues in many areas. Maple sap season wraps up as temperatures stabilize, and attention shifts towards early plant growth. Foragers begin finding early greens more consistently, and morel season begins in southern zones, gradually moving north. The Northeast in April is transitional, but moving forward quite steadily. Hawaii continues its steady rhythm. Offshore pelagic fishing remains productive, reef species stay active, and wild pigs and goats remain available year-round. Alaska remains largely in late winter conditions, though daylight increases rapidly. Ice fishing for lake trout and burbot continues, and predator hunting remains active. Southern coastal areas begin showing early signs of seasonal transition as conditions slowly moderate. Moving up into Canada, April in Canada and the east and central regions is a true transition month. In southern regions, ice out begins, opening early fishing opportunities. Walleye and pike move into spawning phases, and open water fishing gradually replaces ice fishing. In the more northern areas, winter conditions persist longer, and ice fishing continues where safe. Spring bear seasons begin opening in some provinces, depending on the regulations, and snow geese move through prairie agricultural regions early in the month before continuing north. Foragers begin seeing early greens in the southern zones, while northern regions remain more limited as they're still under lots of snowpack. Canada in April moves at multiple speeds, depending on the latitude. So a quick foraging summary for April. In the south, established greens and early mushrooms like morels. In mid-latitudes, rapid plant growth and start of the morel season. In the north, early greens emerging as conditions allow when the snow melts. Mushroom season begins in parts of the continent and expands northwards with warming temperatures. Now to bring this all back into the kitchen. April cooking reflects momentum. Turkeys start showing up in kitchens across much of the country, often simply prepared early in the season. Fresh fish replaces ice harvests, and greens become a regular part of meals rather than a novelty. Morels, where available, begin appearing on cutting boards, often treated simply to highlight their flavor. Just make sure you're cooking these guys all the way through. The freezer starts to matter less as fresh ingredients take over, though preserved foods still play a role in bridging gaps. This is a kitchen that's shifting towards freshness, but still grounded in what carried through the winter. Head over to harvestingnature.com to find lots of wild turkey recipes, fun meal ideas for spring bear, spring foraging dishes, and fish preparations that match what's coming into season right now. Well, that's your Wild Harvest Report for April. Watch water temperatures, watch plant growth, and watch how quickly things change. Confirm your regulations, respect shifting conditions, and stay observant. We'll talk again next month as spring fully takes hold.